statement. So let's say we do A equals 3 and B equals 5 again. We did 4. So I want to see if this statement is true. So that is if A equals B. So A equals B, as we did before. Then I want it to print hello or hi. Okay. So it shouldn't print. Now, if I want to do the else statement, that is if A and B are not equal to each other, then I want to do something else. So an else statement would be something like this. See you later. So what should happen, if we follow this logic, is it checks the if statement to see if it's true. If it is true, it will go into the print part and print it. If it's not true, it will go to the else part, and regardless of what the value is, it will print see you later because it's saying else. That is, in all other cases, you must print see you later. So let's see what happens. So what happens is that you can see it prints see you later because A does not equal B. That is, 3 and 5 are not equal to each other. So thus, see you later gets printed. So that's how you can do that. You can also make it more sophisticated. For instance, do else if. So else if statements are ways to add additional conditionals. So rather than just having an if and else that is only 2 conditions, you can have multiple conditions. So if A equals B, again, we say print hi. And then we can say else if, or in elif in parlance of Python, we tell it to, oh, I didn't actually do it properly. A equals B, print hi, and then else elif, and then I have to give it another condition. So if A is greater than B, for instance, then print A is greater, else print see you later. Okay. So it printed see you later. So what happened here is that, one, it went to the if statement again. So that's the first condition. It says if A equals B, then print hi. If I had, now it goes to the second conditional in this case, which is the elif command, the elif keyword you see here. So it's a second conditional, a second way to check to see if this condition is true. And in this case, we're saying if A is greater than B. So if A, which is defined as 3 up here, is greater than B, then what should happen is that it prints A is greater. But you can see A is not greater than 5, right? So in that case, it has to go to the else statements. We could have added another elif statement to say that B is greater than A, and it would say print B is greater than is greater, for instance. So if we did that, that would simply make another sort of elif expression. So you can add as many elif expressions as you want. So what the general rule is if is the first conditional and else is the last conditional. Oh, excuse me. Else is the last conditional. But elif are all other conditions in between the if and else. So you can add as many as you like. We can add this one again just to make it quick. Print hi. And then elif again, we can do this. We can add another elif. In this case, B this time is greater than A. So print B is greater. And then else, the world is just wrong or something, whatever you want. So we do this, and you can say this time B is greater. Why that happened? Because you can see that it went to this conditional. So it went to the if, it went to the elif. In this case, that is false also, but this is the true conditional, that is B is greater than A, so it printed B is greater. So that's why that occurred that way. So this is basically what's called an if-else statements. They are essentially conditionals, ways to check logic in your code. Logic will be very critical in programming. Most of what we'll do, in fact, involves logical kinds of statements. And so we'll see it a lot, or maybe not most, but certainly very commonly we'll see it. Okay, so we'll talk more about it as we go on, but that's a very important thing to learn, I think, for you. Now, going back to for loops, we had briefly discussed this. I want to talk more about it now. For loops are very important because it allows you to iterate through lots of examples, to do things in a kind of mass way. So you remember lists, for instance, contain many values. How do you actually do something with those values? Well, the easiest way to do it is if you go use something like for loop. So for loops are relatively simple in syntax in Python. That is, you don't have to define the member values a priori. So for instance, I, as we showed before, doesn't have to be defined. Just assume that it belongs to Python by using the word in. So another example is, let's say we have something called, let's say we don't have to even give it, but let's say we do a loop where we say for letter in Python. Okay, so here what we're saying is the for loop, so defined by the word for, letter is now a variable. So it's a variable that's not been assigned to anything. The in now assigns it to something, and it's assigned to Python. So this time we didn't actually create a variable. We essentially just gave it a string. The string is Python. So Python's smart enough to realize that's something, a value that to do something with, because the in before it tells it that it's going to do some kind of action on whatever's following the in. So in this case, whatever following the in is Python, the string Python. So strings are nothing more than lists, if you think about them, of letters, right? So Python, that is a string of 6 letters. So there are 6 members in the word Python, i.e. the list Python. So letter, the sort of value before in, is basically saying that it's going to be the actual reference of what's in, or the variables that are within in. So letter is being assigned as a member within Python, and in tells it that Python is what you're going to be evaluating. So letter is not a specific thing. It's just a variable created as we create the for loop, just like I or any other. We could have written anything. We could have written I or B or C or whatever. But in this case, we did letter. And so we're saying for letter in Python. So Python being the string that's being evaluated, letter being the membership value that's part of Python. So that's how that assigns value in some kind. That's how you can create a basic sort of for loop. Now we've created the colon. So now we're saying it to go into the for loop. So what we're going to say is our first if statement. So remember we did conditional. So if letter, so remember letter is going to be a member of the string Python. So each letter will be a member of the string Python. Equals h. Remember double equals asks to evaluate if something equals something else. And again, the colon defines another part of the code which goes into something. So that is, you're stepping into a sort of another layer of coding. It's like brackets, essentially, where you tell it to do the following code after the colon. So what we're saying is if letter equals h, so if those two values are equal, so basically what's the fourth letter of the word Python as it iterates through this list, or iterates through this string called Python, we're going to tell it to break. Break is another keyword. It basically means to stop the loop. Okay, so you break out of the loop. So you have a for loop. To get out of the loop, one way to get out of it, not the only way, is to tell it to break. So you've returned the value that you're interested in, and you're going to tell it to break. So as you return each letter, you're going to check to see if one of those letters will equal h. If it does, it will break. That is, the loop will stop. Okay, and then you're going to say print outside of this particular line of code, outside of the break. You're going to say print current letter. So this code will execute so long as the conditional if is not true, right? By assumption, since if the if part will only function, that is the break, will only function if that condition is true. If it's not true, it will do this. Current letter will be printing. That is, the letter will actually print, or we'll get the result of the letter. Okay, so let's do this real quick. And so we can see the result is Pyt. Why is that? Okay, so let's say we're in this loop. So we have for letter in Python, right? So letter, again, is just any value in this list or the string of Python. So as it loops through this string Python, it goes through each letter, and it says if letter equals h. So the first letter that's going to come back is P. So is P equal to h? No, it's not. So that means it's going to go to this part of the code. It doesn't go into this part of the code, the break part. It goes rather to this part of the code which says print. So it is printing the letter P. Now, because it's a for loop, it will iterate again. So it goes back to the top, the for part. Now it checks the next letter, P. So if P, or excuse me, if Y, second letter, if Y equals H, then break. Now, is Y equal to H? No, it's not. So it will go again to this part, which is print the letter Y. Okay? So now it goes back again. Is T equal to H? It's not, so it does, again, once again, print T. So you can see we're getting the output. Now, if H equals H, then it tells it to break. And so what happens is the code breaks at that point, right? So as it breaks, it leaves the conditional statement. It then leaves the for loop, and so we get nothing printed. Print does not get executed because we've told it to break. So what we have is output for P, Y, T. That is the first three letters which did not equal H. But since H does equal H, that is the fourth letter in the string Python. That is, this condition was true when we reached the fourth letter of Python. Then we broke the for loop. So the for loop stopped. And so that's why we only get these three letters printing. Okay, so hopefully that's all clear. So those are for loops. There's another kind of loop called while loops. While loops are also kind of a conditional, essentially.